Thank you, Neville. Our next first speaker is Neville Fredericks. Neville is the Central Coordinator for Australia, Papua New Guinea and New Zealand. In his business life, Neville has owned and operated farming and property development businesses for 50 years. He's been the Mayor of the Kiama Municipal Council and has spent many years serving in local government and community organisations, and has held many positions in the Sathya Sai International Organisation. So I'd like to ask Neville to come and address us, please. So, please welcome him.
I acknowledge the divine Sai love, resident in the hearts of each one of you. Jai Saran. Dear brothers and sisters, it's a great privilege to be with you today. Every time I join with a gathering of Sai devotees, I find that my heart is lifted, and there is no other experience in life that you can have that could compare with a satsang with Sai devotees. I'd like to pay or express our gratitude to having Dr. Reddy and Mrs. Reddy with us in our zone. Dr. Reddy is responsible for the Sai organisation in some 120 countries, and we're very grateful, Dr. Reddy, that you and Mrs. Reddy have been found time to be with us in our zone. We had a very uplifting conference in Fiji, and we've travelled in New Zealand for a few days down south, and we look forward to a very uplifting experience here in this conference. Dr. Ganguli and Sujata, we're very grateful also for your presence. Dr. Ganguli is a member of the World Foundation, recently appointed. The Sai Avatar. Swami have said that there are only two avatars that are Puna avatars, having all attributes: the Krishna avatar and the Sai avatar. Swami has said that there is nowhere I do not know the way. There is no thing which I am not. Picture me in any form, and I will present myself to you. I am the totality, all of it. We have all been drawn to him, this God form, the Sathya Sai avatar, and we are his messengers. Swami has said he's come to repaint the guideposts on the ancient highway to God. Let us be those guideposts that he can paint. We are all inextricably bound up in the welfare of society. Swami has said that society itself is an expression of divinity. Divinity is not something which is separate and isolated. It is inherent in every man, woman and child. And Swami has said, see me in the eyes of everyone that you meet. Other faiths proclaim this. In Corinthians 1:16, know ye not that the body is the temple of God, and God resides therein. In everyone, Swami said, God is installed. If God is in our hearts, then there is an everlasting spring of love in our hearts that we can reveal. Swami is asking us to tap that everlasting spring and reveal it to all that we meet. I have been asked to speak just a little on the topic of the devotee in society, as a leader in society. How should we approach engaging with society? We were talking in the car coming here about the challenges of trying to convey Swami's message and how cautious we must be. But the most important thing is that we are not cautious about living an ideal life. When we step out into the world, the most important thing that we can do is to be guided in our every action by the prompting of the voice of God, the prompting of conscience. Swami said the golden age will recur. And for years I had wondered what it meant. What was the golden age going to look like? And a few years ago in one of Swami's discourses, I noted he asked that question. What will be the characteristics of the golden age? And he said that it will be a period in time when the men and women of the world will be guided in their every action by the prompting of conscience, the voice of God within. That is a beautiful framework to hold in our mind, and it's almost, you can see in one way that it's an achievable goal. It's not some mystery. What we have to do is to lead the way, be the beacons of light, and be guided by that prompting of conscience, the voice of God. When we live the values, we are automatically advancing towards an awareness of that inner divinity. When we engage with society, we have to be particularly careful about the state of our minds. Swami has said, the state of our mind is inescapably projected onto our faces. And when we approach someone, they can immediately see the state of our mind. You can tell immediately if I'm worried. I have that in my mind. You can tell immediately if I'm loving. You can tell immediately if I'm irritable. We forget often that when we take some pride in the fact that we can read other people, but we forget that other people can read us so clearly. And Swami said if we keep our mind in a positive format, in a positive state, then that will be projected onto our face. If I approach you with irritability, I will get irritability back. And the whole world seems an irritable place. But if I approach you with love and an open heart, that's what I will get back. And in this way, Swami said, we create our own life experience. So the most important part of our engagement with the world is to keep our minds in a positive state. Think good, do good, see good. This is the way to God. Keeping away the I and the mine. Swami said, I did it. This is mine. These are the two fangs which make an individual poisonous. Very strong language actually, but it's actually very true. I want to speak briefly about the qualities that we might show as Sai devotees to take a leadership role in society. Many years ago, a lady called Valmae Worthington, some of you may know, was giving some service at the summer discourses, the summer showers, the discourses on Indian spirituality at Vrindavan. And Valmae was asked, she was helping, doing some service work, and she was invited into a lunch which Swami had provided for the speakers. And at that luncheon, Swami had said to those present that he wanted every devotee to be a leader in idealism. So if we're going to be a leader, what qualities should we have? I've made a list of a few of the qualities here that I think I've taken from Swami's discourses, and I'll just run through some of them because we need to have these in the forefront of our minds when we step out into society. The first and most important one, of course, is truthfulness. Everyone evaluates everyone else based on truth. We expect truth to be spoken. So when we engage with the world, truthfulness is not only a fundamentally important part of our spiritual practice, it's how society will evaluate us. For truth is inherent and embedded in every human being. Integrity, that's truth with morality. So we're considering a wider range of issues. Swami said that humility is one of the most important qualities for any leader. If no one will admire a leader who shows any egotistical nature or arrogance. Self-confidence. Our self-confidence can only be gained if we are behaving and acting in accordance with our conscience. Years ago, I was having great difficulty in local government, and I'd come home full of zeal, full of enthusiasm, told everyone about Swami, and they all ran away pretty quickly. And I went into local government, and I probably got back into local government because of my earlier service. And when I got in there, the wider community found out about my interest in an Indian guru. And it was one of the most difficult times in my life because my community suddenly turned against me. Or so it appeared. Everyone was putting distance there. My own supporters, inverted commas, in politics were just staying quiet and not supporting me. It was a field day for the opposition because it was a free kick for them. And I was determined not to argue back or condemn anyone. And so I was criticised heavily, and the media picked up on this. I was lampooned in the media. There was one big cartoon in the regional daily paper, half-page cartoon, of myself climbing a snow-capped mountain, and a pot-bellied, whiskered guru was sitting on the top. And the phrase was, "Oh great Swami, how much will I put the rates up?" And it gives an indication of the public lampooning that was going on. And it was extremely difficult. And Jill was very supportive of me through this. And it was so stressful I broke out in boils all under my neck at one stage. So I arrived back at Puttaparthi somewhat broken, thinking that I had not carried out Swami's advice because on my first visit he had asked me to do public work. And we went into the interview room and Swami turned the light on and the fan on, closed the door. And as he walked past me, he gave me a big thump in the middle of the back. "Public work, very happy," he said. And my goodness, I needed that. He went on to say, "How do you love another?" And he knew I was struggling with that, struggling to love all the people who were attacking me publicly. And it was eroding my self-confidence that I didn't seem to be succeeding. And Swami said, "You must first love yourself." And how do you love yourself? You must first have self-confidence. And how do you get self-confidence? You must live in harmony with your conscience, the voice of God within. That's the most beautiful advice Swami has given me. I was able to go home and realise that others can attack all they like, but as long as you're acting in concert with your conscience, there's no need to doubt yourself. You can believe in yourself and your inherent goodness. And that's one of the most important messages that I have ever received from Swami. When we move into society, we must have enthusiasm for the higher ideals. It's a very important aspect of public engagement. When people see that you have the higher good of society in mind, they will come towards us. Swami has said these words, "I know that you have enthusiasm to carry my message among the people of this land and this country and other countries. Let me remind you that the best and only successful way in which this can be done is to translate the message into your own lives. It only takes a handful of inspired people to transform society. We have seen this through history of what highly spiritual people have been able to achieve. Highly inspired people. When we engage with people, the most important single thing is to realise that everyone is inherently good. Swami has told us this. God resides in every human heart. I am looking at you through the eyes of everyone you meet, Swami said. If we approach people with that positive attitude, we can elevate them. And Swami's advice, when people see the advice, see the values being practiced, when they hear them being spoken of, they will be automatically drawn out of every person. For I am in the heart of everyone in the form of those 5 values. These are beautiful teachings for me, very inspirational, and I believe very influential. I'm just wondering how my time is going. I haven't... I'm sorry?
You're fine.
I'm fine. Again, when we enter society, really, these words are really for whoever we approach, is having respect for all. Jack Hawley pointed out, you might recall, he was a great devotee of Swami who had written a number of books. And he said, when we approach someone and we're polite, that's not very significant. Because I can still have irritable thoughts, even though I'm polite to you. Swami said to move, Jack Hawley said, we have to move along this path to be courteous. And from there, we can move to helpfulness. And from there, we move on to respectfulness. And finally, to reverence. Reverence for each one, because we know that Sai resides in every heart and is looking at us every time we engage with every single person. Having respect for all and reverence for all, for the goodness that is inherent in them. Tolerance and forbearance. The world is different for each one. Societies are different, there are different ways of thinking, we're all making errors, other people will make errors, and Swami said that one of the beautiful qualities that we can have, amongst the most beautiful qualities, is tolerance and forbearance. We must have a positive attitude about the world and life. Swami tells us to be positive. Respect for law. This is fundamentally important for any leader, for all of us, but in particular as we move into society. A sense of fairness. One of the things I notice about New Zealanders, I just feel that there's such a sense of equality and fairness in the culture of the people of this country. It's very beautiful to observe. Courage, as Swami said, is the absence of fear. It's the ability to meet unpleasant circumstances. Broad-mindedness. Expand your love, expand your vision. Swami said to me on one occasion, narrow, tight, limited. When I first went to Swami, he said, don't have restricted love to your family and friends. expansion love, expansion love, and expansion love. His hands opened up and revealed with such clarity to me that we have to love all and serve all. We must have a generous attitude. Leaders should be generous. A good leader is generous and not limited. A good leader has personal discipline. I love in particular Swami's advice about leadership, a leader as servant. Swami said his organisation has been tipped upside down, so the leaders are just serving more people. And the highest office that we can hold in this organisation is that of an ordinary member. The higher your office, the more people you are serving. Swami said, I'm at the bottom, holding you all up, and we know how true that is. We must have a belief in others and have the capacity to trust. But as he said to me on one occasion, first common sense, then spiritual sense. You have to live in the world. So want of trust is an unhappy state. Being too trusting can be risky. And the solution is trust but verify. And I must admit, I've learnt that in this last few days from Dr. Reddy. All the time he's saying, follow up, check, always check. That's been very, very wonderful advice, and has really shown me a practical application of that advice. We must persist. Not give up easily at the first setback. Again, Swami, in relation to Jack Hawley, Swami said to Jack in an interview once, how should you live? And Jack said there was a silence, and then wisely I chose not to answer. And Swami said, you should live in gratitude. It's a beautiful state of mind to live in. Think about when you have felt gratitude. We might say, and the reason we should be grateful is that Swami highlighted this fact that you might say, my house, my car, my education, my business. But Swami went on to say, who is it who worked in the fields and the factories? Who is it who built the roads and the bridges? Who built the colleges that trained the tradesmen, that built your house? Who saved the money to give to the banks to lend it to you so you could buy your house? Swami said, we must live in gratitude because without the support of society, Swami said, that our very lives could be in danger. Without the shelter and clothing, all of these gifts of society, Swami turns our mind from the I to the we, a life journey from I to we. We must be non-judgmental. Swami says we have no right to judge another. The one finger pointed is three fingers pointed back to us. My grandson at the table once, but the human mind is very inventive. My grandson pointed to his brother across the table and said, you did such fingers, and then he put his hand like that and said, you did. Very quick to avoid the focus on oneself. But finally, the most important thing that we can do as Sai devotees to influence society is to be the example. This is fundamentally important. All of these others, comments I've made, points I've raised, are just to help us to be the example. So often we say, okay, I'm here, and there's my goal to realise the divinity inherent in myself and others. But the practical Guru, Swami, gives us all this advice to how to advance along that path and to deal with the storms and tempests and the troubles and travails that come on that path. I would like just to finish briefly with this one short quote, I think it's so beautiful. We're here to not only to discover our own inherent divinity, but to be part of his mission, to carry his message to the world. Because he's come to transform society, to re-establish Dharma, and to put it on a firm footing. And he is looking to us to be the exemplars in society and the inspiration for all. Swami said, "Be about my work, my beloved devotees. Your breath will carry the scent of the blossoms of heaven. Your example will be that of angels, and your joy will be my joy." Om Sara.
Thank you, Uncle Fredericks, for your kind words. There's actually a number of points that Uncle Fredericks raised that is actually very relevant for each and every one of us. One of the key messages he gave was, divinity is in all of us. We are all God. Think good, see good, be good. This is the way to God. I was really fortunate many years ago to be in an interview with Swami, and we all came into the interview room and we sat down, and I was fortunate enough to be right at his lotus feet, and Swami looked at us and he goes, "So why have you come here?" And we said, "To be with you, Swami," and a whole bunch of other responses. And Swami looked at us and he goes, "Where is God?" We said, "Oh, God is in our hearts, God is here, God is there," all sorts of responses. And Swami looked at us straight in the eyes and he pointed to our hearts and he said, "You are God." And when he said, "You are God," pointing right to your heart, God is in here. He's not up here, he's in here, in each of us. For me, it was such an inspiration. That whole trip, I just had such a high level of confidence coming out of that trip, which led to the next point you raised, Uncle Fredericks, which was, be a good leader. Truthfulness, humility, self-confidence. Truthfulness, humility, self-confidence. What does that mean? Swami says self-confidence is the very foundation. We asked Swami, is it just like the floor? He goes, no, it's very, very deep. I came out of that trip, just like Uncle Fredericks, wanted to talk about Swami everywhere. And I came back to New Zealand, and I was on the spiritual high for many months. And I was coming out of university, and I had to go for my very first job interview. And it was with a company called PricewaterhouseCoopers. Many of you would have heard the name. And one of the questions they ask you is, so why do you want to apply for this role? And Swami had specifically told me during one of those interviews to do accounting and to be an auditor. And so I had so much confidence in Swami coming out of that trip. When I got asked that question by one of the partners, I said, because my guru told me to. Initially, I was thinking, what kind of response would there be? But actually, believe it or not, when you have so much confidence in Swami, when he knows you're speaking from the heart about him, you don't have to be shy. We spoke almost the entire interview about Swami and his teachings, and I got the job. So never be afraid of speaking about Swami in public. In fact, in the 1997 World Youth Conference, Swami said in the very first discourse, he said, many of you have come here from around the world, from around India, but you're too ashamed to tell people you're coming to Prasanthi to see Bhagawan. You said you're going to Bangalore. You said you're going on a spiritual pilgrimage. Why are you ashamed to say you're coming to see Swami? So don't be afraid about talking about Swami in public when you get asked. Don't go around preaching, obviously.